But speaking of ratings, we're going to move on to topic number 7. And folks, before we start talking about that, make sure that you call our number here at the bottom of the screen. That's our call-in number. You can call in live during the show. And if it's off show hours and you want to call in and leave a voicemail, do so. Call that number, bottom of the screen. Also at the bottom of the screen are Brandon and I's Twitter handles. Make sure you follow us there. We tweet out a lot of different stuff, including some links to some of these segments that we do throughout the show each week. And finally, folks, if you're on YouTube, give us a subscribe. Go to the Comeback Sports YouTube channel, subscribe to that channel. All the YouTube or all the Comeback Sports content is going to be fed to your YouTube subscription. You just got it right there. You don't got to search for it. It's right there in your subscription page. So moving on to topic number 7, the ratings in F1. Brandon, you sent us a tweet saying that 2019, the F1 ratings were up on ESPN. 2020, F1 ratings up on ESPN. And then 2021, F1 ratings so far this season are up again. So, Brandon, why do you think the F1 ratings are up? I got to think it's Drive to Survive is driving this, no pun intended. But what do you think the reasons are for the F1 ratings being up on ESPN over the last few years?
Well, first off, people are finally smartening up that F1 is legit, man, and fun to watch. So I think that's just really one of those things where I think they kind of didn't do a good job of promoting it enough on the international scale, back in the 90s and early 2000s. And so not enough people knew about it, you know what I mean? And like you said, with Drive to Survive now popping up on Netflix where you can watch the last 3 seasons of F1 and familiarize yourself with tracks and familiarize yourself with drivers, with team principles, with team locations. I mean, I think a lot of people are getting that inside look at Formula One that Formula One had never been able to deliver. And so cheers to Formula One for finally doing it. And it took an American company to buy it and turn things around. So I think that has a lot to do with it. The right company taking charge of Formula One to drive the marketing and get it in the right situation and in the right hands and in the right viewers. And it's just now really taking off. And so I've personally been a fan of Formula One since the early 90s. I've been watching it since I was a child, man. And a lot of people are like, how? And I just honestly flipping through the channels, came through it. And I was like, these cars look amazing. They sound awesome. I believe I was like 6 or 7 years old watching those cars. And it was the sound, honestly, the sound of the old school engines. I mean, if producer Ben, if you can ever bring up one of those old school F1 cars, the sound of the engine will just entice you to be like, man, that sounds amazing, especially if you're a motorsport fan. And so I've loved it since then, where you had Senna, you had, the great Ayrton Senna, you had the great Michael Schumacher, you had Nigel Mansell. I remember playing Nigel Mansell's F1 game on regular Nintendo back in the day. And so it's just really, it's come such a far, long way. And I think it's just, like I said, back in the day, they didn't do a good job of marketing it, but now they are doing an amazing job pushing it out to every TV in the world through Netflix. And so even you've said you've been watching up on it and enjoying it and loving it. And you've turned into a good fan now of F1 too. And I think we've seen a lot of those people that if you ask them, they're like, yeah, I'm an F1 fan now because of Drive to Survive. So, hey, fans out there, if you're new to it, go watch it. You got a ton to catch up on. You can go binge watch a couple of seasons on Netflix to go watch Drive to Survive. It'll really put you in the driver's seat, per se, of F1. And, like I said, introduce you to a lot of these great drivers and their personalities. I'm a huge fan of Lewis Hamilton, huge fan of Daniel Ricciardo and Kimi Räikkönen. Those are just my top 3 that I love to watch. I could watch them day in, day out. But I think that's some of the big reasons is obviously, like I said, getting it in the right hands ownership-wise, then also Drive to Survive on Netflix. And then I think the drivers as well. The drivers are doing a great job marketing themselves when you have a world champion like Lewis Hamilton or you have a great, funny, charismatic driver like Daniel Ricciardo. It's just easy to be able to want to follow these guys and watch what they do. And then, like I said, the action on the track is just amazing. Seeing these cars going 200 miles an hour, slipstreaming each other is just so fun to watch every Sunday morning. I'm looking forward to the Austrian Grand Prix this Sunday. But yeah, man, F1 is going through the roof. And I think it's for a lot of reasons right now. that new fans are chiming in. And I think they're just going to keep chiming in as the viewership keeps going up over the years. And I'm telling you, two people that are loving it is ESPN and Formula One, to just keep seeing these ratings go up. But a quick other side note, another rating ship that is going up is IndyCar. IndyCar is also going through the roof here. That's our North American division of, the best racing in the world, single-seater racing. IndyCar is amazing as well. So if you haven't seen that, tune in. But like I said, between F1 and IndyCar, the ratings just keep going up, and people want to keep watching racing, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, I think Drive to Survive, I think, has a big part to do with this. Just by watching, like you said, like I kind of went into it cold, had seen F1, but wasn't diving deep into it like you do. And you start watching the show, and it brings you into this world of F1 racing. You talk about the characters of the drivers. It's tough to market guys who are inside a car with a helmet on. I mean, some of the best, It's easy to market NBA players is because you're so close to the court and you see these guys without helmets, without hats, without anything. You know what their faces look like. So it's easy for those guys to be on commercials and so forth, and gals in the WNBA. They're easy to market. With sports, especially like F1, where they're wearing helmets, you can't see through the visor. And then on top of that, they're inside a tiny car where it's tough to see, what type of person they are, what they look like. It's tough to market that way. But when you watch Drive to Survive, you see the character development. You see, where these guys come from, the trials and tribulations of their season. And also, they're not just the drivers, but also the teams and the team leaders and the owners of these teams, and how the fact there's two racers per team, two drivers rather per team, and how there's some drama there between the two drivers. There's drama in behind the scenes where drivers are switching teams all the time, and guys aren't liking the car that they're driving, so they move to another team, and then so forth, and then they sort of regret that they left the original team. And it's just a lot of this character development and a lot of these stories that you really get to find out when you watch this show. It's so well done. It's well edited. It's well produced. And there's a lot of participation between all the F1 guys and gals, whether it's, owners, team managers, drivers. A lot of people behind the scenes get in there. F1 journalists from around the globe are a part of the Drive to Survive too, which is really cool. They bring a different, viewpoint to it as well. So anybody who's looking to try to get into F1, I think Drive to Survive is your best way to dive into it. But I don't think there's any coincidence that, Drive to Survive came out in, I believe, 2019, or either late 2018 or early 2019.
Yep.
And that's when the ratings start to go up, 2019, 2020, and now 2021. So I think there's certainly a correlation between the two right there. And I think this is something that other sports leagues who struggle with ratings should probably look into. Look into a Netflix, look into a Hulu, look into an Amazon Prime or even Disney Plus, and start doing these types of shows. Partner up with an ESPN, Disney owns ESPN anyway, or partner up with, one of these networks. You can drive viewership on both sides if you do one of these types of shows like Drive to Survive.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you're going to see this a little bit more. You might even see IndyCar maybe do this next, because the ratings are definitely going through the roof. And you brought up, driving changes and driver changes, and this gives you a good inside look into that happening. And we call it silly season in F1, and it always happens. And honestly, right now, and silly season is happening for 2021 season, where there's the potential rumor of drivers moving on to other teams in 2022. So you get to kind of see that. And then another thing is the rumor with Netflix. So Netflix is recording the new season right now while this current season is going on. So they're in the garages. So there's this running joke in Formula One that, Netflix kind of drubs up their own drama in Formula One. So they're like, Netflix is in the Ferrari garage this week. Let's see what happens. Because it's just really one of those things where Drive to Survive has always kind of been there, and Netflix has been there in those big moments to kind of catch it. And so it's just really one of those things. Another thing you bring up is the marketing, because these guys have helmets on, but that's really one of the things they use is the helmet. They sell these mini helmets in the replicas of the mini helmets, kind of like you would get a bobblehead here in America at a baseball game or a football game. you can get one of the mini helmets and maybe get your favorite driver to sign it. So they have these very unique ways of trying to, take advantage of the fact that you don't see these guys' faces the majority of the time when they're racing, obviously. And then a lot of drivers will also take advantage to have an amazing helmet. So, take a look at Lewis Hamilton's helmet, or Lando Norris for McLaren. He always has an amazing helmet, and a lot of times in the night races we'll bust out a special one. But yeah, I think you've got to really tag it, and you did, to Formula One and Netflix being tied together now. I think for the future going forward, because they're just driving these ratings up and up and up. And like you said, other motorsports, or maybe even other sports in general, should kind of take a cue here. And I know obviously the NFL's had Hard Knocks, and they've had Hard Knocks for many years. And this is kind of the version of the Formula One version of Hard Knocks, and it's just called Drive to Survive. So I would say if you haven't checked it out, go ahead and check it out, man, because it will make you an F1 fan quickly as fast as these cars take a corner.